What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel and to my Team of the Week prediction series. It does feel like it's been a little bit of a while, as I last posted about a week ago, which does kind of seem quite long. Anyways, this week being the 22nd, for me, with the actual players in mind, it does look to be a pretty meh team, if you know what I mean. But having said that, EA could easily do us nicely and, put in a cheeky MESSI or so, as you will have seen in the thumbnail. Anyways, just before we get on with the team, I'd like to say that if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, and you are fond of this FIFA content, there's no real reason not to be subscribed. And whilst you're there, do feel free to, comment down below with both your thoughts and opinions on the series, as well as maybe any players that you could suggest, maybe as players you'd expect to be in the squad that maybe I missed out on. With all that being said and the intro out the way, let's get on with the players. Starting with a select few benched players as per, with the goalkeeper being Muller, as the German guy as you can see. Fulham's Brian, Asamoah, Tony, and Lapadula of the Serie A, I believe his name is. Now, with Muller, he did manage to make 13 saves in a single match, which alone is pretty mental. And whilst his card in full is pretty awful, and, this guy as a player is pretty much not important at all in terms of actually getting in your team and whatever else, the IRL performance alone should warrant an inform card. On to Brian himself, who actually assisted the only goal in Fulham's recent 1-0 win. Quite clearly a pretty goalless game, and that could have easily been a 0-0 game. But Brian, being the fullback, did manage to, get on an attack and actually supply the finishing goal. Or at least, assisting. I could involve the actual goal scorer, but, seeing as defenders, as usual, are pretty scarce to come by. And the fact that this guy did actually play to almost a 9.0 rating, it is likely that we will see him, just maybe as a bench player as I've chosen here. Asamoah up next, did manage to earn himself man of the match in his most recent win, having bagged a hat-trick and also earning an assist to bury his opponents. Wearing much different games and obviously different leagues, Tony as the next guy did also manage to get 2 goals for himself for 2, pretty awesome performances. And again, with this Tony guy, with him actually been potentially a pretty decent rating player, and he does look pretty fast and pretty strong. He looks possibly to be the best player in his league. And finally, for the subs bench that I've chosen, Lapadula also getting himself, a brace, providing 2 of the only 3 goals in the game that his Italian side actually scored. This, of course, would go on to beat Napoli, which is always a great result, considering that Napoli are a pretty big team, and they've beaten the likes of Liverpool internationally. For me, it's pretty impressive to see, a newly promoted side come over and, beat a top side pretty convincingly. I know it was only 1 goal, but that's all it really takes at the end of the day. Anyways, from the bench onwards, as we go on to the starting 11 now, with the goalkeeper spot first up, taken by the German Zieler as shown on screen, who, again, doesn't have the greatest card, and that's mainly down to just goalkeepers and defenders being really difficult to choose. Zieler did manage to make 7 saves in the Bundesliga at the weekend, and a handful of them actually been world-class stops. One of these saves was a penalty save, which is always big in a game, as, in different circumstances it's almost a guaranteed goal. He did receive a man of the match award for the game with a 9.1 rating, and again, with him being lower rated, we could see him on the bench, but either way, I am pretty certain that he will get in the team. Onto the defence, just in front, as a back 3 as per. I did settle with Jiku, I believe his name is, Mateu of Sporting Lisbon, and one of the higher rated players in the team this week is De Vrij. Now we'll start with Jiku as the lowest rated. At centre back, scored for himself in a 3-0 win for the French side, working as the man of the match in that game. Now it isn't the biggest result, but 3-0 is a pretty, strong win, and I feel like it probably is pretty decent for his side. It also helps that this guy not only scored but kept a clean sheet. Does make this guy a pretty likely candidate. Mateu, again, as I mentioned, for Sporting Lisbon, did also score a goal and, would go on to be the man of the match of the game, as he did become the difference in Sporting Lisbon's last win. Without him, they probably would have gone on to lose the game, as not only did he play well defensively, but again, he did get the goal. And lastly, for the defence, obviously his back 3, as I mentioned, De Vrij or De Vrij, again, as the Inter player, I'm not actually sure how to pronounce his name. His card does actually seem okay. He's definitely a great rating, but given that he's not that fast, he's probably not the most meta player. But as you can see, he does have pretty amazing defending stats, and he will be a pretty decent player in your team. Assuming you don't use him, he is also good for SBCs, given that he's pretty linkable, you know, with his Dutch nationality and even his Serie A links. He'd also be a good player in red picks, as, you know, you'd go on to do his, let's say you went on to do the icon swaps and you wanted, I don't know, Serie A untradables. He's definitely a good player to be putting in that team. I know I'd definitely use him if I could. Onto the midfield now, you know, away from the defence. The team does here consist of Kostic of Frankfurt, as a pretty well-known player nowadays, Ramirez of the Serie A, Gignac and Didavi. Now we'll start with Kostic, as he did actually contribute to 4 goals. 2 of them being goals for himself, and then setting up 2 goals as 2 assists. Being the man of the match at the end of the game in the German side's 5-0 win. I could always award this to pretty much any other player in the team, given that a handful of them scored goals for themselves. One guy actually scored a brace, a young American player I believe, not too sure his name is. I could go with the goalkeeper, been Trapp I believe in this game, or any of the defenders, as it were a 5-0 win with a clean sheet. Onto Ramirez as the Uruguayan. Playing in the Serie A, he would also become the difference, scoring twice for his team, to help his side win 3-1 against Torino at the weekend, which, considering that Torino haven't had the worst season, that's a pretty decent result. Gignac as usually, you know, an out-and-out striker. Here, I did give him a position change, as he did play a central midfield player, and I have put him more attacking, as, you know, that pretty much is his nature. And I'm not too sure whereabouts he played in the midfield, and I imagine it probably was central attacking mid. We would see a pretty decently high rate for this guy, but considering that his normal card's, I believe, 81, it won't be that high. But with pretty outstanding strength and shooting, he's not the worst player. But, I mean, I am pretty much just trying to sugarcoat it at this point. He does have pretty terrible stats elsewhere, and he probably won't be a very used player at all, even if he does get an informed card. And then finally, for this screen, the German midfielder, as shown on screen, was actually the man of the match for his side, as he did also score a brace to set the match at a 3-0 win, summing up the midfield section for me. And finally, quickly on to the front 3. I did actually settle for the Swedish wide man, Quaison, I believe. Quaison. It's a pretty tricky name. But his contributions, while his name is pretty difficult to, you know, explain, the fact that he scored a hat-trick and he was the only player on his side, or yeah, in his team, to have actually scored a goal, shows that this guy is actually the real deal. I haven't heard much of this guy before, but having won the game 3-1, this guy was obviously the difference, and I feel like this guy does deserve to be in the team. It is possible that he has had a special card before, though I haven't researched that, obviously, as you can tell by the fact that I'm unsure. But I would say that at a pretty decent rating of 84 as I've given him, this does seem to be a pretty decent card, though I don't know how much he'll fit into people's teams, considering that there are a lot of better Bundesliga alternative left wings. Either way, let's say you pack this guy, it is a decent 84 rating, and it can definitely go into SBCs. I suppose that's not really the focus of these cards, but considering that it's not the best team of the week, that's kind of the best thing that you can take out a lot of these cards. Onto Leverkusen's target man, Kevin Volland, as a pretty well-known player, actually managing to bag a brace in a proud 4-3 hard-fought victory over the German giant Borussia Dortmund, who, you know, in the past several games, they have looked pretty unbeatable. Here, obviously, Bender also got a goal for himself and was one of the top performers, playing in a central pivot for the Germans. He seemed, you know, to be a little bit out of position, and I realised that he was playing midfield. Bender is obviously a good player, but the focus is more on Kevin Volland, after obviously he did get the 2 goals and again was easily the difference in this game. And having saved, you know, obviously the best to last with Lionel Messi, one of the greatest of all times, and not just football but arguably all of sport, the Argentinian, without scoring a goal in this actual game that I'm speaking of, did actually manage to earn himself a man of the match in the game, having played the best in the team, providing 3 assists for his teammates to see past their opponents in what led to be an actual tough match, as it seems. And whilst Barcelona haven't, you know, been up to their best performances, and to be honest have failed to impress at times this season, Messi, as per, has been one of, if not their only greatest bright spark. This time practically winning the game for them. Arguments for his absence in the team maybe somewhere along the lines of that he usually needs to score at least a goal, and then obviously it would help that if he contributed about 4 goals, which is pretty ridiculous, but considering that it's Messi and he always gets a lot of special cards, it kind of makes sense. On top of that, he did also play a central forward position as the striker, and this would mean that he's a potential 97 rated card, no doubt would be amazing and probably very pricey, making for a card that could easily trump his previous cards, especially considering that he will have a position change, granted. Anyways, that is the team, and now it's a bit mismatched. You have a decent couple of players in there as usual, but overall it's pretty low rated and I'm not that excited about it. So yeah, as I said, that sums up the team for me this week. So if you have any suggestions on players, etc., feel free to comment down below and interact. And why not, hit the like button on the video if you enjoyed it. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in my next video. Peace.